be able to see this later. I think everyone has to like accept the fact that you can have record. And then I'm just going to talk to you, like I said, a little bit about why we mask, how we came to our kind of masking decisions as a family. And I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell. So I have like my mask and my PAPRs and things here so that I can give you guys a little bit of a visual for what we did and how we did it. So I'm going to share my screen here. And our family's masking journey actually started pre-pandemic. We found out, well, we found out that my kids actually had immune dysfunction and immune abnormalities a long time ago. But my littlest one in 2018 actually ended up having an immune deficiency where her immunologist basically told us that during cold and flu season and anytime that she was in a crowded place that she needed to put a mask on. So we got a little bit of a jump pre-pandemic on getting, like, at least the kids used to mask. Now we didn't always, mask when we were in those places pre-pandemic. My older kids often would mask with her just so she didn't feel like she was the weird or the odd person out. But you can see she had the little just a little cloth mask, and they had those little carbon P2.5 PM2.5 filters in them that we now know in terms of aerodynamics are really not the best mask because there's a lot of resistance around the filter, but then it creates like pockets of least resistance that actually have, make you draw air more around that filter to get into your mouth. So it wasn't, in retrospect, what we know now, it wasn't actually the best thing that we could do. But at the time, we didn't know much about masking, and we were not super clued in like most of the world. And so, but we did actually have these little kind of cloth masks. And then eventually we had, this is her first, like when she couldn't go sit in Santa's lap anymore because there were too many kids and too many germs. We had actually Mrs. Claus come and like do a home visit for her as an immunocompromised kid. And so for us in that 2018 year, that was sort of us acclimating to like more to infectious disease and how to protect ourselves through masking. So we had a little bit of a head start. This is our last flight that we took in 2019. We were flying to see one of her specialists, and she was already, we were masking on the planes and doing those kind of things in these little cloth masks with the little carbon filters. And then there's, this is actually a Cambridge. So we did eventually end up getting some Cambridges and Vogs, and we had those when the pandemic hit. So we weren't necessarily in the whole mask scramble in the beginning because we sort of had Cambridges and Vogs, and we knew this was only going to be, a couple of weeks, right, where we had to wear a mask for a little while, and then we were going to all go back to what we normally did, and that was fine. And then, of course, the weeks stretched to months, and there were no other kinds of masks to be found. Our neighbor was super sweet. When there was the mask shortages, he actually took his 3D printer and he printed my little one because he knew that she was immunocompromised. He came across the street and he had printed her this 3D mask. Now, again, knowing what I know now, the breathable area in this mask is way, way too small. And of course, she didn't really enjoy wearing it very much because it was hard to breathe in. But that was super sweet that he had printed her a little 3D mask when, you couldn't buy a mask in the stores and they were gone. And then, as 2020 rocked on, this is like the end of summer 2020, we decided we had to do a dentist appointment. And so, again, as our knowledge of what COVID was evolved, and we started taking it a little bit more seriously, and then we started to understand what what aerosols meant versus fomites and versus droplets and all of those kinds of things. Then we decided we ended up, looking for more protection, more masks, better masks, and eventually got to our like N95s, right? And we went through KN94s and N95s and all of those kinds of different trials and errors. We found the Mask Nerd. I'm sure probably everybody here knows about Aaron Collins and his spreadsheet where he tests, the different kinds of masks and what kinds of, resistances they have and how good their filtration is and which of the brands are better. If anyone doesn't know that, I know we've posted it in the groups before, but we can certainly put together a little post presentation of links and make sure everyone has the the link to Aaron's spreadsheet, and he's still at it. He's now got a company going, and he's doing all sorts of things with clean air and air protection and masking. But we found those spreadsheets, and we started looking to upgrade our mask, and we got sort of from the Cambridges and the Vogs to the N95s. And then the variants kept coming, right? And they kept getting more and more contagious. And the RO kept going up, and we kept learning more and more things about the way that COVID could transmit. And then here comes Omicron, right? And so about that point, late 2021, we actually bought our first PAPR. Now, at that point, we didn't know really what a PAPR was, or I didn't really know what a PAPR was as we were looking at things. I just knew that this helmet that had filters and blue air was really cool. And I started looking at the data behind it and thought, okay, we had some medical appointments at that point that we needed to start doing to catch up, because, by then all of 2020, 2021, we hadn't really gone anywhere or done any of those things. And so we actually got the first generation of the microclimates. And I can't really complain. I was going to show you, we actually have an Air 2 now, and I was going to show you some of the features and stuff, but I didn't charge it. And I guess they put this alarm in now. If you turn the fans on and you run out of battery, the alarm starts to make this real big, high-pitched, annoying thing to tell you that your battery's gone, and then I couldn't figure out how to turn it off, so sorry. There's no actual show and tell for the microclimate like I had planned, but I can't complain about the microclimates. We ended up not really understanding the technology very well, but knowing that we had at least an N95's worth protection with also some eye protection, and then it just it felt like we were more protected when we went into a situation where maybe a lot of people at that point, we knew that like the baggy blues were really spraying aerosols and not really ideal. And we still had about half the population around us that tended to sort of chin diaper their mask, or, not really wear it down under their nose. And so we relied on the microclimate for a good little while, and we still occasionally will pull it out. I have one child that does infusions, and her infusions are like all day long. And she likes to wear the microclimate instead of an actual mask. We have them at home. We don't have them in an infusion center. It would be, probably different. But at home, the nurse, and she's in a separate room with the nurse, and it's isolated and filtered and all of that. But we still keep, a mask on her, and she likes it because you can take a little piece of tubing and, run it up under the neck, and she can still drink, and she can still do her things, and it's actually fairly comfortable. We had my little one wore it to an like a vision therapy kind of assessment at one point, and that was okay. We wore it to immunology and cardiology and some of our different doctor's appointments, and it was a pretty decent little PAPR. The only problem with the microclimate is that the filters are they're just N95, and I can talk a little bit about that in a second. N95 is good. It's great, but as we march on in the pandemic and more people have had COVID, are passing it around, people aren't tested, nobody, we're more at risk. We wanted something like more than N95. And I'll tell you also something pretty funny, not understanding PAPR technology, the microclimate, it's fabric, right? And so we had gone through this whole mental gymnastics about, okay, we have these fabric masks, and we know we're supposed to upgrade the fabric mask to, N95 filter material. And then all of a sudden I've got this, PAPR-like thing, but am I really protected with cloth, right? Is there really a fabric kind of protection that's good enough, or is it a commercial gimmick? Is there something going on? I even took, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but they have those little science kits where you can take powder or gel, and you put it on your fingers, and it's to simulate germs for kids, and you can shake people's hands and touch doors, and then you take a little black light and you can see how your germs spread. So I tried to figure out how to put that in a spray bottle and put it in the air and wear the microclimate, and then black light the inside to see if I could see if any got inside or whatever. Spoiler alert: that stuff does not aerosolize very well. It doesn't work, and so the experiment was sort of a fail. But like I started having these questions about like the aerodynamics of this mask in particular. And this mask is not like, it's not NIOSH certified. So a lot of it was just the protection data, the filtration efficiency data that was out there that convinced me that it was a good idea. I didn't really understand like what the PAPR meant and how protective that a PAPR can be, and how the sort of airflow fit together. But luckily we ended up wearing this to quite a few places, and it did serve us well. Then about that time, we upgraded the kid to the kid's flow mask, which is one of the few I can never say that word, electrostasmeric, whatever, masks that are available for kids. And we thought, okay, now we're really doing well, right? Like now we've started upgrading our technology. And then eventually I even found this little, this is an Israeli gas mask for kids, and it's actually a PAPR. But my child had no memory, because she was little when the pandemic hit, and she had no memory of ever going into Target. And she was obsessed. Like it was one of those things where their brain sort of gets stuck. And she was like, what's in Target? Target looks really cool. I see these commercials of Target. Target must be this fabulous place. And so like one of our major outings that year was we bought this gas mask, which was a PAPR, and we let her go into a shopping trip in Target. And yes, we knew it was a calculated risk, and luckily we came out just fine. But really, that's why we got the mask, was because she was really obsessed with seeing what was in Target. And that's the only time we've actually been in a store since since 2020, was that one Target trip where we got this PAPR for. Now, just a caveat on this PAPR, we do still have it, and you'll see her wearing it for Halloween. But what I've learned since then is the airflow in this is actually not high enough even for a kid. You're supposed to have a certain number of liters that are blowing, liters per minute, I think it is. And this PAPR actually has a really low liter per minute flow. And so there's probably too much carbon dioxide buildup in this mask, and there's also probably maybe some other issues with it. Again, I'm not an expert either in these things. I'm just trying to share what I've learned, and knowing what I know now, this is not the setup that I would choose currently for a child's PAPR. But at the time, I thought, okay, we'll protect her from gas. I mean, I know a gas molecule is smaller than a Viron, so like she should be good in that, right? And then we decided, time marched on, and I was like, okay, now we have like all of this, waste, and we have all these disposables. Let's try to up our game some more. Let's maybe pay a little bit more money. Let's get a reusable mask. The Invo came out for their N95s, and they're super comfortable. I work in healthcare and saw a lot of the nurses in the hospital the hospitals were buying them up in bulk and handing them out to nurses and doctors to be able to keep themselves safe on the units. And so we bought a round of Invos. And then we also tried out, as we kept going through, like, okay, N95, N99, we tried something called the stealth mask. And I actually do have these over here. Just if you want to just see for a second, I'll show you the Invo is sort of cool. So the Invo has this, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it has this really nice squishy gel seal. And that allows a pretty decent fit if it fits your face shape. And it makes it really comfortable to wear for hours. Like you can do, an 8-hour or a 10-hour shift in this Invo and not come away with all of the marks and the it does have an option for ear loops. Of course, anyone who wears masks for a really long period of time knows that the head harness is usually a lot more comfortable than the ear loops when you're going for long-term use. One of the things I don't like about the Invo, again, is that their filter, and this has got a splash cover on it that just pops right off. But the filter here is, again, it's an N95. And the reason why they've kept it an N95 filter, again, is because for breathability. They feel like if they upgraded their filter material, and they may eventually still do that, but they feel like if they upgrade their filter material, then they're going to lose too much breathability. So we ended up going through a round of these. That's super comfortable, and my kids didn't even mind them because they're sort of futuristic. You can see like the little clear gel thing, and they're not hard to wear. So that was one of our tries. And then another one of our tries that you'll see here in a second, which actually is not a horrible mask. It's valved. This is a Stealth Light, and this one's like $35. It's an N95, and it's actually made for like cyclists. But it was also, pretty comfortable. Now we wore it on our pirate cruise because we had costumes. Here, I'm going to show you that here in just a second. And what we did find though was that there we are trying to be pirates, but as we would sweat though, because there's no head strap on this, it just goes right around the back of your neck. As we would sweat, it did seem to sort of slip. So I don't know if that was just a function of our fit or if they all sort of slip when you sweat. And so we didn't tend to gravitate towards this N95 for very long, but we did wear it occasionally. My teenagers thought that this was a cooler looking mask than some of the other mask options that we had at the time. So as we kept going, then we, again, got more serious. The ROs keep going. we keep getting, now we know like the after effects of COVID. We know about all the sequelae. We know how repeated infection it is a problem. At the clinic where I work, we're seeing more and more people with long COVID and sequelae coming in. And so we get more and more serious about our protection. And now we're thinking, okay, we want some P100s. We're also seeing more and more people sort of get infected with their N95 mask on in different scenarios. And that's always, anecdotally, that's always sort of an interesting thing, right? Because you don't know how their mask fit or whether they took it off to take a drink or whatever. But, we're just looking at the people around us going, okay. And for us, COVID is with our immune deficiencies and with our understanding of the science and how it affects multi-systems in the body, it's a big deal for us. And so then we got the GVS Ellipse, which I know a lot of you do wear. I think it's a great P100. It does, again, for me, gets a little bit sweaty sometimes on the inside, but I've worn it again for some long stretches. It's fairly comfortable. The thing that stopped me from using the GVS Ellipse and then moved me on to another mask was the next sort of layer of fitting. Oh, there we are in our Halloween with our masks and our little PAPRs and stuff in their Halloween costumes. But what brought us to where we are today, and this is like my go-to. I wear the 3M V-Flex N95 when I'm out. I've got a SIP valve in this one in the picture. And then my oldest daughter wears an Airgami. And they test. They're not NIOSH, but they did just win the BARD competition this year. They test about a N98, N99 kind of level. And then we went to our Secure Clicks, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But the thing that upgraded us from, sort of this, the GVS Ellipse or the Invo or even some of our other masking ideas was the fit test. When we sat down and took the time to actually fit our masks, then we learned so much, and it wasn't what we expected. I was pretty sure that I was a rock star in my Invo, and I was pretty sure that my youngest was a rock star in her Flow, and we failed these so fast that you would not imagine, because our face shape, when I smile, my chubby cheeks lift the mask up and move it around, and this mask moves too much on my face and it creates little pockets when I smile. And so fit testing the mask really taught me that my go-to mask at the time for like more protection was not good enough. I can pass a GVS Ellipse, but I can also fail it. Like if I were to wear this mask, I would need to constantly be thinking about making sure that I wasn't making exaggerated face movements. Like I can smile in it, I can talk in it, but if I were to sing opera, which we do in our fit test, just because, like, what better way to exaggerate your, facial expressions and make sure that you're not getting, any kind of leakage. But if I were to sing opera in this, or to get really animated, if I were to get, upset and really want to share, you guys can see I talk with my hands, I'm expressive. This mask will leak for me. And so I don't want to have to stop and sit and think about, like, not only, where's my situation, awareness of who's around me, what my kids are doing, what I'm doing, and make sure that I'm modulating my facial expression. Like it just becomes too much, especially in a situation where I want this level of protection. That's not something I want to do. So as we went and as we started to fit test our masks, then we learned what worked for who. And it's very different even for everybody in my family. So I have my older, my son, he can wear adult flow, which he did wear for a while. He passed fit in that. None of the rest of us passed fit in adult flow because we had the same problem that we had with the Envo. He did not pass in an Envo either. Nobody in my house could actually pass fit in these Envos, which was actually disappointing. My daughter did pass the ellipse. I think my son said no because it looks like a bug face, so I'm not wearing that. Uh, but what we could pass and what we couldn't pass really made a big difference. And so if there's anything that anybody I think should know about masking and your mask progression, it's how important fit testing is, especially if you're not going to be upgrading to a PAPR, because PAPRs, and we'll talk about this in a second, I mean, they have a lot of pros, but they do have some cons, and part of the biggest con is the cost, right? They're expensive. And so a lot of us will opt for a cheaper, mask. And also PAPRs, of course, are going to be reliant on power supply. And they're also going to be, a lot of them for the weather's going to matter. You're not going to be in a downpour in your unprotected electronic stuff in your PAPR. The fit test makes all the difference in the world about knowing whether or not you're actually protected. You can have a P100 on your face and you can actually have less protection in your P100 than you would have in a regular N95 if you haven't fit tested your mask. And fit testing your mask does not have to be hard, okay? It does not have to be rocket science. I wanted to show you just, I'm not going to actually fit anything, but I wanted to show you how I fit test our mask. And it's really, really super, super simple. Now you can do like particulate counters. You can do a lot more fancy fit tests, but one of my kids just has a, regular old nebulizer. This is just a Respironics nebulizer, the kind that you use if they need saline nebs or something for upper respiratory stuff, or if you have a kid with asthma or whatever. You can get a nebulizer on Amazon for about 40 or 50 bucks. You can get the little ones that you hold in your hand. Like I said, this is sort of a medical grade one that our insurance company gave us, but we already had the nebulizer at home. And because we already had the nebulizer at home, we also already had these saline ampules. And these are just little, I think they're 5 ml saline ampules of saline to nebulize. And so the only thing that we really had to buy for our fit test was this 3M bitter solution. And I think this 3M bitter solution is on Amazon. I think it's like 12 bucks. Sean, do you know how much is that about right? Yeah, I think it's about 12 bucks for this bottle, and this bottle lasts freaking forever because you do not need a lot of this stuff to fit test your mask at all. And so all I do when I fit test my mask is, you open the little nebulizer cup. I take 2 of these little pink ampules, and I take 2 of these little pink ampules, and so I put about 10 mLs of saline in here in my little cup, and then I take my little measuring syringe, and I put about 3 mLs of this solution. You can go like somewhere between 3 and 5. You don't have to put very much though. And so usually I just hit about 3 mLs in here, And then when you turn it on, the first thing you do, at least the first time you do it, I wouldn't suggest you do it every time after that because this stuff tastes nasty. But the first time you do it, you just take a big whiff of it and make sure that you can taste the bitter solution. My kids all hate the bitter solution because they know how it tastes. But I went with the bitter instead of the sweet just because it's a very strong, like, when you fill a mask if you've got this solution in here. So all we do is we just put on a mask and then we just use a garbage bag. We put on a mask, we get under the garbage bag, we turn this on, we let it blow close to our face, and then we stay under that garbage bag with this going while we usually do about 2 minutes where we're just sitting there breathing. If it fails grossly, it's going to fail immediately in that first couple of minutes, and then we turn it off and move on to the next mask. If it doesn't fail in that first 2 minutes, then we move to like talking. And then after we talk, we do, a bunch of head movements. Then we move to our opera singing and our vigorous movements. And if we can get all the way through vigorous movements and opera singing and our heads going in all the directions and we can't test the bitter solution, then our mask is good. If we taste it at any time, then we know that mask is a fail, and that's not something that's protected. And so that's how we came up with the mask that we wear all the time. So my 3M N95 V-Flex is my go-to mask to wear outside. Outside, I usually wear an N95. It's super comfortable. I love this is like it's my favorite mask. And I love my mask because I literally forget that I have it on. Like, I've tried to lick my fingers with the mask on before, or, scratch my nose or whatever. Like when I wear this, and I've worn it for, all day, long before in outside settings, I pretty much forget it's there, and I can do anything in this mask. I bet I could turn somersaults if I had, an ability to keep the nebulizer with me. And this mask doesn't move off my face, and it does not, I pass fit with flying colors. And my big kids also both pass fit in this mask. They're not hard to find. They're not super expensive. So this is my outdoor go-to mask. Now my son likes the Kimberly-Clark duckbills, and I pass fit in these too. We all pass fit in these too. I think I feel a little bit more secure with the 3M V-Flex on my face, and that's why it's my preferred. He likes the fact that he doesn't feel this. He likes the spongy straps versus the rubber straps. And he likes this one. He's a sensory kid, so this one does not bother his senses very much at all. And my younger one uses the Hallard duckbill, which is a similar model, but for kids. They come in a small. I don't know if you can really see it, but they have a little orange tint to their small ones. And she passes fit in this too. Kids mask. We had a super hard time finding kids masks that would pass fit. We probably tried 25 to 30 different kids masks on her. She failed the flow for the same reason that we failed the Invo. If she smiles or moves, it lifts up on her face, and we've cinched it, adjusted it, whatever. We really wanted her to pass that flow because it was our go-to mask for a year and a half. But she could taste the bitter solution regardless of how we did it. She does not taste in this one. She passed a Bluna, the one with the tiger on it, the KN94 Bluna. She passed, and she passed these halyard ones, but it was really, really hard to find an actual protective mask for her particular face shape. And I think that's a problem with kids. I think in our country we have a sort of a deficit of development of masking options for kids. So I just wanted to demystify the fit test and say, if you can grab everything that you need for it on Amazon. It's not really hard to do, but it can tell you a whole lot about which mask is protective for your family and which mask is not. So then we got to the time in the pandemic where we realized that this was here to stay. I have no delusions or illusions that COVID is going to go away. I don't believe that the virus is going to be eradicated. It's in too many animal reservoirs. We've never eradicated anything in the past that has had animal reservoirs, especially as cross species as we have with COVID right now. It's in wild deer population, and genetic sequencing have shown that it's gone from deer to human and back and forth. So COVID is going to be a virus that we're going to have to deal with for a very long time. Now, are we always going to be in the spot where we're in now? No, I do have hope that we will have better therapeutics, and also better therapeutics for long COVID, and better tests to identify what the mechanisms behind long COVID are. We've made tons of progress in the medical field since 2020 to now in terms of knowing what to do, how to treat, what to treat, Paxlovid, being around, all of those things. I do think eventually we will also have, better vaccine technology that may give us more durable immunity, not the mRNAs that we can't count on to mediate really transmission, but some of the newer technologies that are coming out that might hopefully give us a sterilizing vaccine. But in my family, like again, we were immunocompromised pre-COVID, and COVID is not the only pathogen that we have to worry about. My kids have problems with strep and other viruses like hand, foot, and mouth, just common, Coxsackie. So when it became pretty obvious to me that we were in this for, a long time, then we had to start looking at, okay, what makes life worth living? What are the risks that we need to take and have to take to get things done, and to also be able to sort of live and enjoy our lives. And so one of the first things that was really apparent was that we needed the best protection that we could get, because we have to do our medical stuff now. Like if this is going to last, what first wave of bubonic plague was like 7 years, if this is going to last a really long time, we're already in year 4, right? Then we have to be able to do our basic medical, take care of our basic medical needs. We also have to be able to have our education needs met. My children are like so many kids, they want friends, they want to play. That a lot of them are pretty extroverted, and they also have some issues with neurotransmitters and screens, and so it makes it really complicated for them to be on screens for a really long period of time. So the first thing we set about saying is, okay, in our new normal, what's the most protective mask that we can wear, and what's the mask that we can be surest of? So fit testing gave us one level of protection. The next level of protection, confidence that we got, was from these secure clicks. And I'll tell you why we like the secure click mask. This still, even though we've started to upgrade to PAPR, and we have now access to some PAPRs, we still grab these a lot. And we grab these a lot because they're quick and easy to put on. Okay, they're not really very expensive. The body of the mask is about $50. It's between $45 and $50 depending on where you get it. They're highly protective. They have a built-in fit button right here. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but you don't have to do your whole, obviously the first time you might want to do the nebulizer thing just so you feel extra confident. But when you put this mask on your face, and then you push this button, you can tell if you breathe in, if you don't have a seal, you can tell. The air whistles, you can feel it. If you have a good seal, it sucks onto your face. And the other thing that we really like about this is, well, first of all, it fits the young one. It fits the 8-year-old, the small version. She was able to pass fit in it, and I actually did neb her fit as well as have her do the fit button thing. But it fits the 8-year-old. If you choose these regular just P100 filters, it's actually pretty light in terms of, it's much lighter than the clean space PAPR that we have. So it's easy, grab and go, light, check your fit, move it. It also, if you have the gas cartridges on it, then you don't have to worry about the rain. These are actually pretty water resistant, and so you can walk around outside in the rain and not worry about having your filter media get wet, like if you had a regular N95 on, or not worrying about your electronic equipment getting wet if you had a PAPR on. They actually do make these with a face shield too. We just all, half of us wear glasses, and the ones that don't wear glasses, we have stoggles, or sometimes I even just wear my screen glasses. Our family's comfort level is, for most things, that's probably enough. eye protection for us. We do also have goggles if we feel like we're going to be in like a super high density kind of situation. But this mask is just, it's very easy to don and doff. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to check your fit. It's very easy to change your filters. Now these filters, the mask itself, like I said, it's about $45. These filters are about 11. These filters are about 39 themselves. But for what we use them for, they'll last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Like if you're using them in an industrial environment, you have to change them more regularly. But for what we do and where we go, these filters are going to also last a really long time. So these are actually our sort of more casual grab and go kind of mask. These are the ones that we've been wearing a lot also to doctor's appointments. Now, I mean, now that we have the PAPR, we may flip that out, but I think the last picture that I showed you on the screen was this one right here. This was my daughter and I going to see her neuroimmunologist at UPenn, and we have these masks on. We just threw a surgical over them because they do have a valve. So if you need to, have your valve covered, you can throw a black surgical over it, and that's what it looks like. And we actually got compliments on our mask. This was only a couple months ago, which is pretty surprising, because a lot of people get hostility, but we actually had a few people ask, like, where did you get those? Those look pretty cool. I wish I had something that was that protective. And so that was our, this is something still we use. And I also found that a hat tree, I'm not going to show you, it's over across the room, but we just hang them on a hat tree. And so it's easy to keep them organized that way. So instead of like a coat tree or a hat tree, we have our family mask hanging on. Oh, yep, look, there's Eliana's got hers hanging on a little coat rack on the door. So that's what we do. Now, the final one that I was going to show you too, that I'm sure most of you are aware of by now, was the Ready mask. And these are the ones that stick on your face. And one of my kids really like these. These test more closer to an N99 than an N95, even though they're NIOSH for N95. They make the small size, which fits kids. And then they make the larger sizes for adults. The one caveat I would say is we do find that a couple of us need to use either a face cleanser or even alcohol on our faces if you have sort of more of an oily sheen to your skin to get the adhesive to stay. But once it's in place, once it sticks, it usually sticks pretty well. And so and you can be super active in them, like you can run around the park, you can put your SIP valves in them. Again, I hope that everybody knows about SIP valves. We have fit tested with the SIP valves so that you can actually drink. A straw goes through there, and it works sort of on the same principle as an exhale valve. And we've fit with them. You can fit in a Ready, you can fit in a Vogue. You can sip in a Vogue, you can sip in a V-Flex, you can sip in a variety of masks, and they're, again, pretty easy to install. So I just wanted to make sure these are good for MRIs. There's no metal in them. These are good for, kids running around and doing things in them, and you can reuse them. You can take them off and put them back on. Now, we don't usually take them off and put them back on too many times because, again, we want to make sure we've really got that good seal. We're sort of very particular, but these are also an option that we do use depending on the circumstance. So yeah, I told you I was going to go over, Sean. Now I've gone about 45 minutes. What we finally decided was that I'm a manager, practice manager, and I lead a research team in a medical clinic. And my clinic has been virtual since the pandemic started in 2020. And we are actually reopening our clinics in person. And so we've been through this whole journey that I'll probably share maybe in a different presentation about how we've outfitted our clinics, how many air exchanges we're using for our UV technology, where we are going to be using the FlowFlex Rapids for everybody who walks in the door. Everyone will have, their N95 or better on or provided for them. So we're doing a lot of COVID mitigations in the clinic where I work because we do work with a lot of immunocompromised people. But for me to agree to to come back and work a hybrid schedule again with my family's profile, that's when I said, okay, we're going to go with the PAPRs, right? Again, this is, I was fortunate that my clinic would buy mine, but after I got it and saw what it could, do and really sort of understood PAPR technology, which I'm going to let Sean explain to you more of the PAPR technology, because I think he probably even knows more about it than I do. But once I understood the protection of PAPR technology, then I knew that eventually I would like to have a PAPR for every person in my family. I mean, guys, you can, people wear, PAPRs and they work with, very highly infectious diseases. And the best way that I can explain it, just in a nutshell, I'm sure Sean will do better, is like if you've ever, you've seen a fish trying to swim upstream. And fish can swim upstream against milder or gentler currents, but it would be really hard for a fish to actually swim up a Niagara Falls or up a very large waterfall. And that's sort of the principle of the PAPR. The PAPR uses outflow to basically push so much air outward that there's no way that air will come in. It's the same principle as your exhale valve. When you breathe out in a mask with a valve, the valve opens, but the pressure of your air pushing out through that valve makes it where no air is coming in. It's a physics thing. And PAPRs give you that situation, all the time. And so you don't have to have a perfect fit on a PAPR. Now, this PAPR actually does allow you to give a fit, and that's mostly because if your battery were to die, this actually gives you, an N95 kind of protection without the battery going, or I guess it depends on what kind of filter you have. It gives you a P100, I guess, you'll be pulling and pushing air through the filter yourself instead of having the motor help you. But if you do not have a perfect fit with your mask, the outward push, this PAPR automatically is continually measuring the pressure in your mask, and it continually adjusts the fan's flow rate so that if you do, actually you can pull it away from your face a little bit and you can hear the motor rev as it pushes more air out to compensate for that little gap that you've created, to make sure that there's no way that the ambient air can rush into your mask, because there's so much air going out. It would be like a little fish trying to swim up Niagara Falls. So the volume of the air going out is not going to happen. And so one thing I want you to know, first of all, is the size of the mask on this PAPR is very important. And they have an app that you can get on your phone that you can measure your face. And I wish I had done that first, because I spent a very uncomfortable time in the wrong size mask, which again, you can even wear the wrong size mask in this and still get it to pass fit and get it to work for your face. But before I found the right size mask for me, I wore a size too big, and I sort of had to cinch it on my face really tight, and it wasn't really very comfortable. But they have this app, it's called CS Mask Select. And so you can get it even before you have your respirator, and you take a credit card and you put it by your face and you take pictures, and it tells you which mask size is probably going to work for you. And it did. If I had done that before, it told me that I needed a small, not a medium, the minute that I used that app to mask. Then the Halos, this version of this PAPR, they also have an app that comes with it. And the app that comes with it on your phone, it tells you you can do a check to make sure that all of your electronic components are working properly. You can actually fit test your mask, and it measures it on your phone. It tells you your battery life and your respiration rate, all through the app that connects to your phone by Bluetooth. So it's sort of the state-of-the-art kind of technology. And I'll pop it on for you real quick, and then I'll just show you the difference between this one and their industrial model. And then Sean will actually talk to you about what might even be a more comfortable option. So for this one, you just turn it on, and you'll hear it blow for a second when it first comes on. Maybe you won't. Maybe you have to breathe first. But the three little dots here tell you that it's fully charged. It also has a visual indicator. It has little adjustments here for the size, and that's because you don't really want this this back part, you don't want it resting on your neck. You want your headrest to carry the majority of the weight, and you want just the right amount of pressure here for to keep it stable and level. And it's supposed to be, you know, sort of level around your face. And so all you do is you just, I probably should wear my hair now. You just slip it around here on your neck, and then you just connect it. And then what's going to happen is your breath will activate it. So it's not going to turn on, and you'll probably be able to hear it when it does, but it won't turn on until I take a breath in it. Let me just get it connected here. So I don't know if you can hear the motor or not, but the motor is running now. And what it's doing is when I breathe in, it pushes more air out to make sure that I'm, you know, have the right amount of resistance around the edge. Can you guys hear me when I'm talking okay? Yeah, okay. So what it does is when you breathe in, it pushes more air out so that stuff doesn't, you know, the virus doesn't rush in and get you. And when you breathe out, then there's less air. So I don't know if you can hear it over Zoom or not, but it's actually not too loud. I mean, I think if you were in a movie theater and you were trying to like watch a movie right next to somebody, it sort of sounds like a ventilator to me, you know, like, or someone with a tracheostomy. But it's not like super, super loud. It's pretty comfortable. Like I said, it's pretty easy to take on or take off. And if I want to take it off, then I'll just do this here and I'll come right here. And now you hear the blower. It's going to blow for a couple seconds before it turns off. And then it's going to go into standby mode. So taking it on and taking it off is pretty easy. I like the fact that if I even, you know, if my fit is a little bit off, I'm pretty protected because of the outflow. The one caveat, the one thing that I don't like about this is I have worn it for 5 or 6 hours several times now, and I do find it to be drying to my sinuses. It's almost like if you've ever used a CPAP machine and the CPAP machine ran out of water, how drying that is. So my solution, which I have not tried yet, is I'm going to try this this AYR no drip saline nasal gel. I think if I were to use this saline nasal gel, then maybe that would give me enough moisture that I wouldn't experience such a drying issue with the PAPR. And I think that because my mom's on like high flow oxygen, she has 8 liters, and she uses this gel so that her oxygen doesn't dry out her nose. So I think we could use this gel, and that's my next step. And I'm happy to update again in the groups once I try it to make sure that that takes care of the drying issue. And it's not just me, because my older daughter wore it too. And she actually commented the same thing, that it did sort of dry her sinuses out. And so that's the one caveat. Other than that, like I said, it's pretty comfortable. Now you can get a cheaper model. So after I got this one of our friends, you guys probably know Ann Mitchell from the groups. I don't think she's here today, but she actually had gotten one and then decided she would never wear it, and so she was selling it, and so I actually picked up hers because, like I said, I have 2 other, you know, adult sized people in the house besides me, and she actually had it's the same company, the same kind of PAPR, but she had the one that's for like industrial work instead of healthcare. So the Halo was designed for healthcare. The Clean Space 2, which is what this one is, it was designed for like workspaces. And really the only difference that I can tell is how you see how trim and slim that this one is. The one that's for workspaces, it's, you know, a couple of inches thicker here around the waist. And so that also makes it a little bit heavier. Now it also does come with a little bit more of a heavy duty head strap if you want it, so that again, it has this back tether that more of the weight should ride on your head and not on your neck. And so again, we've tried this one. It's actually, you know, it's decently comfortable too. And it's a little bit cheaper in terms of price. This one is their most expensive model, and this one is actually I don't know, I think it's like maybe $300 or $400 cheaper. So there's a pretty sort of significant price difference, but it works exactly the same way. You breathe into it, it turns on, those kind of things. So our goal is to sort of have, again, now the little one can't wear these. They're too they don't fit her yet. The small mask is too big. But we would sort of like to have a PAPR for all four of us that live in this house, so that if we all wanted to go into a situation where we thought that PAPR protection was necessary, then we would all have something that we can wear. Now, I'm not 100% completely sold that this is the best solution for everybody, though. I think Sean's going to talk to you now about his PAPR and how he got there. And I think his PAPR may actually be a little bit more comfortable in certain scenarios, and maybe even better. And for the younger kids, I think his style of a PAPR is an option. We have a couple of people in our group that use it for their small children. They use the 3M version, and they use the small size mask, and it works well. So I think that I'll just segue over and let Sean talk about his option as well.
All right, can you hear me? All right, thanks so much, Kara. That was really interesting. I learned so much from your talk, and thanks for letting me join you today. I love what you had to say about fit testing. I didn't actually, I haven't learned a ton about that because, like I said, I switched to PAPR about a little over a year ago, and I learned about fit testing after that. And fit testing isn't really part of the PAPR world that much, but thank you so much for everything you shared. And I'm going to begin my talk, and I wrote out some remarks, and I have a PowerPoint I'd like to share, and maybe we could do a show and tell after I'm done the remarks. So I'm using my cell phone, so it's a little tricky for me. I'm pretty low tech in this regard. So I'm going to unhook my cell phone here and see if I can get the PowerPoint going. All right, can everybody see that? Can you see that, Carl?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, hi everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today and to share how I've used respirators throughout the pandemic, how I've upgraded them over time, and the reasons for doing so. I'm sharing these slides via my cell phone, like I said, which I've never tried before. So if there's any technical or display issues at any point, please let us know. First, I would like to take a moment to note a few qualifiers. First, that I'm not a professional in the area of personal protective equipment and have researched this area in a personal capacity, and also that I view this as a continual learning enterprise, and I welcome any comments or corrections if anyone sees anything that could be clarified or corrected. I know there's a huge amount of collective knowledge in the COVID safe, COVID cautious, COVID conscious community, and I look forward to learning more from you all. Also, I want to say that though I will be going through different types of respirators and knowing the relative merits of them relative to one another, I want to say that I greatly respect, value, and appreciate and admire anyone who is still wearing any kind of mask or respirator in public, and I appreciate the effort to protect yourselves and those around you. And I hope my presentation today will provide some information on how you can strengthen that protection in both a comfortable and economical way. Also, I want to say that I'm very thankful for everyone in the COVID conscious community who I found last year and have become an integral part of my life. And I have met so many valued friends and acquaintances through this network, and I am continually impressed by the intelligence and compassion of this community. And thank you for allowing me to share some of my story with you today. Also, in this talk, I wanted to note that I'll be focusing more on the how than the why of my approach to risk reduction, as I assume we all understand that SARS-CoV-2 is a serious risk to our health, both in the short and long term, and why we desire to take strong precautions against it. I'll briefly say that the aspects of COVID in particular maybe we want to avoid are the fact that it can attack so many different organs of the body, that it can lead to long COVID, that it can damage the immune system, and that damage from multiple infections is cumulative and can increase health risk with each infection. Also, I will share that my experience of having chronic sinusitis throughout my life, including having 3 sinus surgeries over the years, has greatly informed my desire to avoid COVID, because I have known throughout my life what it feels like to be weighed down by illness. And I greatly desire not to be further weighed down by COVID. I've worked over the past decade to improve my lifestyle habits in an attempt to mitigate my sinusitis. And I've gotten to a point where I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it, which means a lot to me. I still do sometimes have flare-ups, such as the past couple of days. Sorry if I'm a little phlegmy today. But overall, my health has been pretty good most of the time during the past few years, and I'm trying to avoid COVID, bringing that back down to where it was years ago, or even worse potentially. So this is where I'm coming from in my approach to protection. In terms of risk reduction, I want to emphasize that I'm coming from a particular perspective, which is reducing risk to a very, very low level. I understand and appreciate that we all may have different levels of risk reduction that we would like to take and different goals in this area, and I respect that everyone may have different goals in this regard. Some may desire to take one or some precautions, as shown in this diagram, leading to a somewhat reduced risk of infection. As for me, I'm sure similar to many of you all, my personal goal is to take strong and consistent protections with the goal of lowering my risk of infection to as close to zero as possible. There may be some who view my protections, including my use of a PAPR, as excessive, and there may be some who take even stronger protections than me. So I'm sure there is a continuum here, and I just wanted to let you know where I'm aiming for on that continuum. Also, I want to share that my goal in risk reduction is to automate as much as possible and create a system of rules and practices such that I don't have to think about every situation independently. Simply put, to set it and forget it as much as possible, which reduces the mental energy I need to spend analyzing any given situation and potential anxiety, as I have a set of guidelines for how I will behave or protect myself in most situations. And sometimes that means not entering a given situation. Of course, there's no way to totally avoid having to grapple with what to do in many individual situations, but my goal is to reduce that to the extent possible. This is one reason why I've chosen to use very high-grade personal equipment, also known as PPE, because the more I can increase the quality of my gear, the less I need to be concerned with any particular situation, and the more control I have on how protected I am, and the less dependent I am on the protective choices of others. Of course, the qualifier here is that there are certainly situations where we will be more dependent on others' protective choices, such as in some medical or dental settings in which we will not be able to wear some or all of our gear, though I'm focusing here today in this presentation on everyday situations in which we can wear our gear and have control of this aspect. Also, I want to emphasize that, of course, risk analysis in the area of SARS-CoV-2 transmission is inherently difficult, as we, of course, cannot see, smell, or feel these virus particles, and many infected people are asymptomatic and show no visible symptoms, and transmission depends on factors that can vary from one situation to the next. And so we must rely on a combination of one, a general understanding of how this virus is transmitted, and two, the technical specifications of any pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical interventions that we utilize. And though we can do the best we can and think about the likelihoods and probabilities, we of course cannot make exact predictions. And before getting into the technical specifications of the various PPE that I've used throughout the pandemic, the first thing I would like to do is take a moment to establish how this virus is transmitted, which is critical in understanding how to both behave and move through the world, and how to select PPE to protect oneself. I'm sure this will be a review for most of you, for pretty much all of you, but I just wanted to take a moment to establish this at the outset. The main mode of transmission for the virus is through the air, via one's exhaled breath, via breathing, talking, singing, or coughing. For infected people, these aerosolized or airborne particles contain SARS-CoV-2 virus particles and can flow through the air surrounding the person. The most intuitive way to think about how these aerosolized particles move through the air is to try thinking of them how one thinks of cigarette smoke, which is similarly aerosolized. This is noted in this tweet by aerosol scientist Kimberly Prather. Engaging in this thought exercise is very helpful in terms of thinking about risk when being around people in indoor and outdoor situations. For example, if one were outdoors, how far would one have to stand from a smoker to breathe in no smoke at all? Well, that is how far one would have to stand from a COVID positive person to avoid the potential of becoming infected by breathing in their exhaled air. And it is useful in thinking of real life situations, such as, is it safe to eat outside on a restaurant patio? Well, in this situation, the question I would ask is, if there were smokers seated at one or several of the tables on that patio, would I breathe in any of that smoke? The answer to this question could depend on several factors, including how far away from the table from you their table is, and what the wind speed and direction is on that day. However, if the answer to that question is yes, then yes, one could become infected in that scenario. While we can use this metaphor of cigarette smoke to identify and avoid obviously risky scenarios such as this, there are many unavoidable situations that we face as we move through the world in the course of our daily life. And it is very difficult to avoid being in relatively close proximity to people and the aerosolized particles that they emit. And so I consider wearing a high quality respirator to be essential if we want to reduce our risk of COVID infection to as low as we can. Now I'll share the story of how I selected and upgraded my masks throughout the pandemic in continuous pursuit of this goal of reducing the everyday likelihood of infection to as low as I can. Of course, it's not possible to completely eliminate it, but I've worked throughout the pandemic to adapt and adjust my gear and habits to get as close to that as I could with the knowledge I had available at the time. From the start of the pandemic through fall 2021, I wore an N95 respirator, specifically a 3M8511. This respirator was the highest quality mask that I was aware of at the time. And given that it was difficult to obtain N95s early in the pandemic, and given that I happened to have some of these 3M8511s in my home as the pandemic began, as I had used them previously for some home repair projects, I used them and felt pretty protected with it at the time. I should also note that I carefully covered over the exhalation valve on this respirator with duct tape, thereby having it provide protection for both me and those around me. Now, let me take a moment to discuss N95 respirators and what they offer. According to the FDA website, an N95 respirator is a respiratory protective device designed to achieve a very close facial fit and very efficient filtration of airborne particles. Note that the edges of the respirator are designed to form a seal around the nose and mouth. So we can see that N95 respirators are designed to protect against aerosolized particles. In contrast to loose-fitting surgical masks, which, as the FDA notes, the edges of the surgical mask are not designed to form a seal around the nose and mouth. This aspect prevents surgical masks from being protective specifically for these types of particles, because aerosolized particles can easily enter one's airways through the loose edges of such a mask. As such, N95 can be viewed as the first acceptable option for true protection from aerosolized particles, and one should not wear a loose-fitting surgical or cloth mask if one wants robust protection against inhalation of this highly transmissible virus. For some other clarifications, the FDA also notes that N95 respirators are not designed for children or people with facial hair. Because a proper fit cannot be achieved on children and people with facial hair, the N95 respirator may not provide full protection. They also note that some models have exhalation valves that can make breathing out easier and help reduce heat buildup. Note that N95 respirators with exhalation valves should not be used when sterile conditions are needed. That is the type that I used at the time, and at that time I did cover the exhalation valve, though a more straightforward choice for two-way protection for both the wearer and those surrounding these days is using valve-free N95 respirators such as the 3M Aura, which I've since become accustomed to and greatly appreciate that mask. Now that given that N95 respirators can filter out aerosolized particles and are designed to create a seal around the edge of the respirator, one might wonder why I chose to upgrade to respirators beyond that level. This has to do with a confluence of events that occurred in the fall of 2021. After the so-called, quote, summer of freedom, in which many Americans reduced their personal precautions after getting their primary course of vaccines, a few things became apparent. First, that the emergence of the Delta variant reduced the vaccine's effectiveness against infection. What had originally in June and July of 2021 appeared to have an efficacy against infection on the order of 90% or more in some cases, fell significantly, and one could no longer rely on vaccines to protect against infection completely or to that level. Of course, the vaccine did still greatly reduce the probability of severe outcomes and death, but in terms of infection itself, many, including myself, who wanted to completely avoid any and all infection at all from this virus, realized that both because this virus had evolved to evade the vaccines to a degree and it increased transmissibility, it was time to upgrade to a higher quality mask. Another reason I decided to upgrade was that more Americans, as I mentioned, had begun unmasking and reducing their personal precautions and masks at the time, in part due to faulty guidance from public officials. Also around that time, I attended an online presentation by the Clean Air Crew and Nicholas Smith, who at the time was executive director of the American Mask Manufacturers Association. And in this presentation, they shared the benefits of elastomeric and P100 respirators. And once I learned about those, it became obvious that I should upgrade. It became immediately apparent to me that elastomeric respirators with P100 filters are superior to N95s and were underappreciated by the general public. I also saw a chart which Nicholas Smith prepared and shared, which shows the hierarchy of masks and respirators in terms of their levels of protection, which rank them from least protective to most protective, which further clued me into the elastomeric respirator superiority to N95s. At this point, of course, I'll definitely emphasize what Kara said, though, earlier about this is kind of a ceteris paribus discussion in terms of all else equal, in terms of if they all fit correctly. And as Kara noted, it is really important to make sure that they fit properly when using any mask. So yeah, I definitely want to support that and add that qualifier. Thanks. Now, before I venture into elastomerics, I would like to get into some details on how to analyze these and all respirators, which will help us discuss and think about them. First, the key thing to understand and keep in mind is that all masks and respirators can be evaluated on two basic metrics: protection from the filter or filtration material itself, and protection from the construction, fit, or design of the device itself. The filtration layer is, of course, important because it filters out particulate matter. And the construction, fit, and design of the device itself is also important in its role of stopping unfiltered air from leaking into the breathing area from outside. These two metrics are measured separately, and it is important to use both to evaluate any respirator. The filters are defined by terms such as N95 or P100 that indicate a rating of filtration efficiency, as in what percentage of particles that meet the filter will be stopped by that filter. And the device itself is rated by something called an assigned protection factor, or APF, that describes how well a device, irrespective of the filter, protects the wearer, as in how well it keeps out any and all air that did not come into the respirator via first coming through the filter. So let's first rate the N95 respirators that we've looked at thus far, according to these two metrics. For example, the popular 3M N95. First, the filtration efficiency is indicated by the name of the respirator itself, as N95 indicates that it is, quote, NIOSH approved for at least 95% filtration efficiency against certain non-oil-based particles and aerosols. NIOSH is the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health and has an approval process for testing and rating respirators. As an aside, given that we are discussing N95s, I should take a moment to mention that the KN95 masks that some people wear are not NIOSH approved, but are instead, quote, expected to conform to China's GB 2626 standard, according to CDC. NIOSH did test a set of KN95 respirators in 2020 and 2021 and found that, quote, about 60% of KN95 respirators NIOSH evaluated during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021 did not meet the requirements that they intended to meet, unquote. NIOSH also noted that many of these internationally procured respirators, such as KN95, had an ear loop design, which makes it difficult to achieve a proper fit with them, and that most NIOSH-approved respirators have a headband design that goes fully around the back of the head. So in a choice between an N95 and a KN95 respirator, it appears that one should favor N95 respirators because they are NIOSH approved, and they have this feature of the headband going around the back of the head. Again, as I noted before, it appears that we should view N95 as the minimum standard one should wear in order to achieve dependable protection from this aerosolized virus. And I haven't mentioned fit testing yet, or actually, I'm sorry, I wrote this down. Kara, of course, did mention fit testing, and I mentioned it. But yeah, I'm going to make this qualifier again that one should definitely fit test any respirator one uses to ensure proper fit. I was, if I recall, not well aware of fit testing during the time I was wearing the N95. And as I learned more about it, I eventually upgraded to respirators that either had something akin to a fit test within the device itself or did not require it, I will discuss these respirators in a bit. Now let us turn our attention from the filter rating to the device APF, which is defined by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, as, quote, assigned protection factor means the workplace level of respiratory protection that a respirator or class of respirators is expected to provide to employees when the employer implements a continuing effective respiratory protection program. The APF for an N95 respirator, such as the 3M ARA, is, according to OSHA, 10. And for a half-face elastomeric, such as the 3M one that I wore at the beginning, in the fall of 2021, this also has an APF of 10. So one might ask, given that my elastomeric and the N95 had the same APF rating, why did I feel so strongly about moving to the elastomeric? In this case, it has to do with the filter. which makes the elastomeric superior, as well as some other attributes of the elastomeric that I appreciated in terms of usability. The filter that I use in the elastomeric is a P100, which, quote, filters at least 99.97 of airborne particles, unquote. This is functionally equivalent to the filtration efficiency of HEPA filter. This is a substantially higher degree of filtration than N95, which offers 95% filtration efficiency. Some basic math will make it clear just how much more efficient P100 is in this regard. First, if a respirator has 95% filtration efficiency, this means that it may let up to 5% of particles through the filter. In contrast, if a respirator has 99.97% efficiency, this means that it may let up to 0.03% of particles through the filter. Now, using a hypothetical example to make this more tangible, suppose that 10,000 particles come into contact with an N95 filter, such as with the 3M RF shown here. This means that up to 500 particles, which is 5% of that 10,000, may enter one's airways through that filter. In contrast, suppose that 10,000 particles comes into contact with the P100 filter, such as the 3M6503QL shown here, with the 2907 filter. 2097, I'm sorry. In this case, just 3 particles may enter through the filter. So we can see that this indicates that the N95 filter may allow up to 167 times the number of particles through the filter as compared with the P100 filter. Now we may ask, does this mean that the N95 respirator is 167 times less effective than the P100? I would say it depends on how you're looking at it. Yes, it is true that the N95 may let through up to 167 times the number of particles as the P100. However, we must also acknowledge that both masks completely stop the first 95% of the particles, which in this example is 9,500 particles. That is really powerful stopping power on the part of both respirators and both excellent results. So if stopping 95% of particles is a good enough standard for you, then both masks would be equally fine for you. However, if like me, you're interested in stopping all particles from entering your airways or as close to it as possible, then the P100 is substantially better because it reduces that remaining 5% of particles down to a minuscule 0.03%. And of course, again, I'll add the qualifier that this is assuming that they both fit properly, as Kara mentioned. And again, I'll emphasize that it's very important to make sure that the fit of any mask is correct and seals correctly. Additionally, there are some added benefits to the elastomeric, particularly the 3M6503QL that I use, as it has built-in capability for checking the seal, which I mentioned earlier, which the N95 does not have. Instructions for how to do this are found in the 3M instructions for that respirator. The CDC defines a seal check as a quick procedure to conduct every time you wear a respirator to make sure that you donned the respirator properly. A positive pressure user seal check is done when the person wearing the respirator exhales gently while blocking the paths for air to exit the respirator to make sure there aren't any leaks. A successful check is when slight pressure builds up in the respirator without any leakage. A negative pressure user seal check is done when the person wearing the respirator quickly inhales while blocking the paths for air to enter the face piece. A successful check is done when the face piece collapses slightly under the negative pressure. I should note that a seal check is different from a qualitative or quantitative fit test, which Kara showed earlier, or demonstrated earlier. I, of course, recommend doing a fit test with any and all devices. At the time I got the 3M elastomeric in 2021, I was not that familiar with fit testing and just did the seal check per the 3M instructions, which I found satisfactory at that time, as it passed both the positive and negative pressure seal check, though it would have been better to do a fit test as well. I did the seal check with the 3M by placing my hands over the inward and outward vent holes by attempting to breathe and attempting to breathe in and out. I would note that I modified 3M's seal check procedure to make it more robust by first removing the filters before doing the seal check, because doing so made it possible for the palms of my hands to completely cover both small vent holes. I then rescrewed in the filters after I had adjusted the respirator straps to achieve a sealed fit. This functionality with the 3M was also the reason that I ultimately chose this 3M elastomeric over the GVS ellipse, which I also tried, and which is also a popular elastomeric, because it was possible to seal check the 3M every time via the device itself, which I did not find possible with the GVS ellipse. While the palms of my hands could easily cover the small vent holes of the 3M, the vent holes of the ellipse were much larger and also curved, making it not possible for me to fully cover the vent holes and do the seal check in the same manner. I'm sure there are other benefits of the GVS ellipse, as it is a popular elastomeric, but for me, having that easy to do seal check on the 3M led me to go with that one. I should also note that I tried both the 3M 6502QL, which is the medium, and the 3M 6503QL, which is the large, and found the large size version fit better, so I went with the large. I definitely recommend trying several elastomerics to see which one works best for you. The elastomerics video from the Clean Air crew that I mentioned earlier had a show and tell with lots of people from all around the world showing all sorts of different elastomerics. And there are many options to choose from with many cool features. Also, the exhalation valve on the 3M elastomeric helps improve breathability. Of course, the same qualifier exists with this respirator as did with the 3M N95 that I mentioned earlier, that it does not fully protect against two-way transmission, only one-way transmission. I would note here that the GVS ellipse does not have an exhalation valve and thereby does provide full two-way protection, which if one is looking for a two-way protective elastomeric, the GVS ellipse respirator would provide that functionality. So that is a benefit of the GVS. Also, a general benefit of elastomerics is that elastomerics can be kept for years and even cleaned and washed, which is not possible in the N95. So it is more environmentally friendly in that regard. I saw that question about how did you clean it. I never actually got around to doing that. I recommend doing an online search for that. I've read about people either using some sort of wipe to do it, and I think you can actually use soap and water. The key is that you want to, of course, remove the filter, because you don't want any water to come in contact with any sort of respiratory filter, such as N95 or P100. And I also recommend consulting the instructions for these respirators. That's been one go-to thing for me throughout the pandemic and researching, is that when you get an elastomeric or you get a PAPR or you get an N95, oftentimes they'll come with these like huge instructions that like fold out. And I'm the type of person that where I'll actually read it. I like to read the whole thing. And that's where I learned about the seal test on the 3M elastomeric. I learned that by just reading the brochure and going through it. And so that's the first thing I would say is with whatever elastomeric you try, whatever N95 you try, is to just read the instructions, because you'll pick up little tips like this that can be really useful. Let's see, what was that? The fact that that's possible to clean and reuse it for years makes it more environmentally friendly than N95s. And the P100 filter in the elastomeric will only likely have to be changed out perhaps once every 6 months or so, unless it becomes dirty or has reduced breathability with extensive use. I should mention a note here regarding elastomerics and N95s, as I mentioned earlier, that you should definitely not get these wet, and that the filters should not be stored in high heat or high humidity conditions either. And that any of this may interfere with the particularly the getting it wet will interfere with the electrostatic charge of the filter material, which is really important, a really fundamental aspect of this filter material. As such, I try to avoid going outside in the rain as much as possible when I'm wearing filtration gear, to err on the side of caution when it comes to protecting the filtration material, and definitely carrying an umbrella with me if there's any chance of rain in the forecast. I found elastomerics to be more comfortable overall, as it has a head strap that cradles the top of one's head, and it is made of silicone, which I found more comfortable to wear and also more durable. And I would also note that both the adjustable strap and the silicone material may help create a better seal as well, because you can, of course, adjust the strap to fit your face better, whereas the N95 just has an elastic band you can't adjust as easily. And also, I watched a video yesterday by a physician who went through these, and he mentioned that he appreciates that aspect of the silicone and its durability, and the fact that unlike the N95, it will, N95 may degrade over time in terms of the material itself, whereas the silicone is more robust, so it might be able to retain that ability to create a better seal over a long period. Also, the 3M respirator setup that I have with just around $35, making it very economical, especially when considering that it can be reused for years, and replacing the filters currently costs only around $10 per pair. And there are P100 elastomerics in a similar price range as well. I see that the GVS Ellipse is currently around $35. I will also note that another big benefit of elastomerics is that you can use multiple types of filters. For example, the first filter that I used with my 3M was a 60926, which, like the 2097 filters that I showed earlier, is also a P100 filter, but it also has a gas and carbon layer to filter out VOCs. And I've heard one user to say that it helped her with perfume sensitivity. However, I found that the heaviness of this filter fatigued the bridge of my nose during extended use. And so I switched to much, much lighter 2097 P100 filters, which were much more wearable for longer walks outside. One note about elastomerics that I should add, with half-face elastomerics, such as the ones that I've just discussed, as well as with N95s, these respirators only provide protection for one's mouth and nose, but do not protect one's eyes. So we should add separate eye protection, as Kara showed earlier, to those respirators for more complete protection. I use the Honeywell UVEX S1650DF safety glasses for that, which I found to be a great choice with good protection because it has a gasket around the edge that creates a near seal, though not a perfect seal. And it seemed to fit well when worn with the 3M 6503QL. And I wore my glasses over top of them. I found the near seal, I'm sorry, I don't have a link, but they're on Amazon if you just search for that name. So let's see. Oh yeah, I found the near seal to be a good compromise in most situations because this reduced fogging, which occurred when I tried fully sealed swim goggles. I did use the swim goggles for riskier indoor situations, such as a doctor's appointment or vaccine update, where I used the swim goggles for where I really wanted to guarantee a seal. But those did often fog up and cloud my vision. And so in most cases, for just my usual walking around outside, I stuck with the UVEX safety glasses. They're pretty inexpensive at around $20. Now, I should mention here that there is another elastomeric that has nose, mouth, and eye protection as well. And I also consider it to be a great value in terms of protection offered for the price. This is because for between $100 and $200, one can have a P100 elastomeric respirator that has nose, mouth, as well as eye protection, and has an OSHA APF of 50, which is 5 times greater than both the N95 and half-face elastomerics, as shown in this diagram here. This means that this device itself, irrespective of filtration, is 5 times as protective as these others as a device itself. And when you combine this respirator with the P100 filter, it provides superior protection. Now, at some point while I was researching all these various respirators, I came to learn about powered air purifying respirators, also known as PAPRs. These devices work much differently than all the other respirators that I mentioned, and as Kara discussed as well earlier. In that with PAPRs with loose fitting hoods, such as the one I eventually got, they do not rely on creating a seal on the surface of the face at the edge of the respirator. Instead, the device uses a constant stream of filtered air that is pushed into the hood via a motorized fan. And this outward pressure created in the hood both keeps the hood filled with filtered air, as well as stops unfiltered air from entering the hood around the elastic edges of the hood. The hood also allows the carbon dioxide that one breathes out to gradually escape through the elastic edge as well, as the outward pressure from the motorized fan pushes all the air in the hood gradually outward. Here are some benefits to the PAPR relative to the other respirators we have discussed. Most significantly, PAPRs can have APFs that are orders of magnitude higher than the other respirators. And I think a big part of this is the fact that as Kara mentioned, it's really hard to get a great seal oftentimes with the ones that require with all the respirators that require a face seal, in large part because, and especially over long periods, because throughout the day, as Kara mentioned, we're smiling, we're talking, we're moving around, moving our neck, we're walking. It's not easy to get a consistent seal over a long period. Whereas with the PAPR, those variables do not apply because it does not, like I said, it does not require to maintain a consistent face seal around the edge of the mask. Where was I? OSHA's classification. OSHA. So getting to talk about the APFs themselves. OSHA's classification for these respirators designates a standard assumed APF of 25 for them, unless the manufacturer can demonstrate a higher value through their own testing. I contacted the manufacturer of my PAPR, which is Draeger, and asked them what the APF is for my device, and they said that their tested APF for the Explorer 8500 and the standard short hood that I used at the time was 1,544. This APF is 154 times higher than the N95s and elastomerics we've just discussed thus far, and speaks to the PAPR's superior ability to keep out unfiltered particles from one's airways. As noted here in this paragraph from the CDC, PAPRs provide increased protection over and above FFRs, which is short for filtering face piece respirators such as N95s, and half face reusable elastomerics. Also, please note that the filter is the same P100 level as with the elastomerics we just looked at, and the difference in efficiency comes solely from the APF, which can be much higher than with PAPRs, of course. Also, the CDC notes that no fit test is required with PAPRs. In our two-pronged respirator analysis discussed earlier of looking at both filtration levels and APFs, we see that the difference between PAPRs and the other respirators comes from the combination of the P100 filtration and the high APF rating. The PAPR is superior to N95s in both filtration material and APF, and is superior to the half-face respirator in its APF. Now I'll mention the reasons why in March 2022, I decided to upgrade from a half-face P100 elastomeric and goggles combination to a PAPR. The first and main reason is that similar to the upgrade to the elastomeric that I did when the Delta variant emerged, the fact that the virus made another jump in transmissibility with Omicron led me to want to upgrade again. Though Omicron was often portrayed in the media as quote mild or quote milder variant, this of course was not accurate, especially as this variant infected such a multitude of people in December 2021 and January 2022, as this variant could still cause major damage to organs throughout the body and cause long COVID as well. This virus had now evolved to become one of the most highly transmissible airborne viruses we have ever encountered in modern history. And given that the vaccines continue to not be able to stop transmission and infection completely, or close to it, and given that the public had largely stopped taking precautions as they had been falsely told that they were protected once they had gotten vaccinated, and the pandemic was now, quote, a pandemic of the unvaccinated, it was up to me to shore up my own defense in response to this evolution. There has been a kind of arms race between COVID and I over the past 3 years, and that SARS-CoV-2 has gotten better and better and better at transmitting itself and evading our immune system. So it has seemed only natural and logical for me to increase my defenses in response. I would note, of course, that SARS-CoV-2 did not evolve independently, but was heavily influenced, of course, by the decisions of governments and people all over the world to not take proper precautions, and allowing the virus to spread indiscriminately and get fitter and fitter at evading immunity and becoming more and more transmissible. And finally, I would note that post-Omicron, during the Omicron era, because we're still in the, there has been less and less good data available to us with which to make risk-based decisions, as testing has migrated from the public and recorded sphere to the private and unrecorded sphere. And notwithstanding some available wastewater testing data and some case positivity data, we have been more and more, quote, flying blind in this pandemic without as much information available as there was before to make day-to-day individual decisions. This erosion of available data also led me to want to increase my protection level in response. So that is the approach I took in March 2022. I wanted the best defense available against COVID that I could get, and that is what the PAPR provides. Also, as an aside, I would note that SARS-CoV-2 is what is known as a BSL-3 lab pathogen, and I upgraded to using equipment that scientists would actually use in a BSL-3 lab for protection. And perhaps in one sense, one could say that the US had become similar in character to its BSL-3 lab in 2022, as it had become saturated with SARS-CoV-2 during this year. And when I looked at it from a workplace protections perspective, it only made sense to me to use the same protective gear for this virus that workers would in similar situations in their workplace. Why use anything less? Also, I would add, if any other BSL-3 level pathogens, such as tuberculosis, were spreading rapidly throughout the country all the time, I believe I would make the same exact choice and protection in that case as well. I've often told people that for me, 2022 was the quote year of waiting for lulls that did not come in the spread of SARS-CoV-2 across the country as they had previously. I isolated at home for most of 2022, and even with having a PAPR at the time, I still did not yet feel safe entering this new world of continuous high spread. It was not until the beginning of 2023 when, like Kara, I began grappling with this quote new normal of continuous high spread. It was then that I made this decision after much thought to leverage the superior protection of the PAPR that I had to getting out and about more. This has been a wonderful addition to my life this year so far, and I've begun meeting with friends again outdoors, and I feel well protected in my gear. I also used the gear to enter my office building at work to renew my work ID card and exchange my laptop recently. And I take long walks outside with them regularly. Now, getting back to the PAPR itself, I will share why I chose to get this particular PAPR. I got the Draeger Explorer 8500 due to its high reviews that I read online, the fact that the hood appeared to have room in the front to contain a half-mast elastomeric, which it turns out it did, and because of its focus on durability and wearable design. I have also come to appreciate its modular design, making it very easy to switch out and upgrade individual components, as well as its focus on safe design with several sensor, indicator, and alarm features that minimize the potential for user error. It did cost me around $1,600, which is of course a lot, though I felt and still feel it was worth it because getting the best possible PPE may be the one area of protection in this pandemic that I have full control over, unlike with vaccine effectiveness, government policies, or the behavior of others around me. So I decided to go quote all in on respiratory protection. My use of the PAPR is still, I would add, part of a multifaceted approach of utilizing vaccines, avoidance of risky situations, and testing. And though from my perspective, the superior quality PPE gear represents the strongest component among these that is available at this point in terms of pure stopping power against infection, which is my highest goal. In terms of the gear itself, I will note that it is definitely designed with professionals in mind. This is professional grade gear and is designed to protect workers in hazardous environments. Whenever I contacted Draeger with questions about my PAPR, which I've done several times over the past year, they usually ask me what company I am with or what industry I'm in, which is pretty funny to me, as it is generally professionals who use this gear. The fact that I am using what is used by industrial or healthcare workers in hazardous environments gives me even more confidence in it, as this gear is designed with them in particular in mind. Now, let me take a moment to go through the components of this PAPR. My current setup includes the PAPR motor, a high-capacity battery which lasts 8 hours, the belt and comfort pad that snaps into it, and the premium short hood and flexible hose, which were 2 upgrades that I obtained recently. I would also note that I recently cut out and taped a transparent UV blocking film layer on top of the face shield, which both removes the need for me to wear sunscreen on my face while walking around outside and also protects the face shield from any dust or scuffing. Also, there are some other side benefits of this PAPR as well that I'll mention that aren't related to COVID prevention. One is that it has improved my sociability and social interactions to a degree, in the sense that when I interact with friends now, they can see my full face and expressions, whereas they couldn't see this with the N95 and elastomeric. And my friends have remarked, a friend of mine remarked to me that he appreciated that. So that was good. He said that the first time I left my house this year to meet with friends with a PAPR on, he said that to me, and it really meant a lot to me. And it really felt great to hear that from somebody, that they appreciate that. Another is that it does not require me to keep clean shaven or close to it, as the elastomeric and N95s do, nor focus continuously on keeping a good face seal, which of course, as we discussed, is difficult when moving around a lot throughout the day. Also, a big side benefit is that it provides climate crisis ear protection, in that it filters out air pollution, including wildfire smoke. Of course, the other respirators that I mentioned do this too, though I think it is cool that the PAPR is creating a near particulate-free air environment for me as I walk around the city. Also, I wanted to mention that this PAPR, unlike other protective measures we have, will protect against all future variants, no matter what mutations are on the spike protein for this virus. That is irrelevant with this and all other high-quality respirators that I've discussed today, which capture these particles based on the physical property of their size and being aerosolized, not on their biochemical characteristics. And if any other new aerosolized pathogens that transmit from human to human emerge, this PAPR or other high quality respirators will be similarly useful as well. And for perhaps a novel perspective on it, it has occurred to me that this device may represent a sort of personal infrastructure investment in clean air, similar to how some people may purchase a reverse osmosis filter under the sink for their tap water. I kind of view it as perhaps a luxury item of the future in that regard, in that given the often high levels of particulate matter in the air, using high quality respirators while away from home in combination with HEPA filters at home gives one continuous access to virtually particulate free air. It is an interesting thought experiment or question that occurred to me. If the COVID pandemic ended tomorrow, would I give up my PAPR? It may seem like an obvious answer, but now that I have felt the benefits of it, it would not be an easy choice for me, I have to admit. For example, a couple weeks ago, I was walking around for a couple hours outside with a friend of mine, and she noted that her eyes were watering, presumably due to the particulate matter in the air that day. My eyes were not watering at the time, and I remembered that they used to a lot before I started using HEPA filters at home and my PAPR while outside. And I realized that I was living, at least in this one aspect, in a completely different environment from almost everyone around me, with virtually no air pollution. A couple qualifiers I should mention about the PAPR. First, first, of course, is the price. That's as Kara mentioned, and I'll mention too. It is really expensive, and I understand, and I totally understand. Like, I'm coming from definitely a place of privilege that I'm able to afford it, and I totally want to acknowledge that. For me, it was at the same time, it was definitely something I wanted to invest in, but I definitely want to mention that qualifier, and that's why I wanted to emphasize that there are other really, really great respirators like half-face elastomerics, especially in full-face elastomerics, that you can get for like the half-face elastomerics, you can get a full setup for around $35 that I showed, and for the full-face elastomerics, you can get, like I said, for between $100 and $200. Other qualifiers are it does only provide one-way protection for the wearer. If you would like to achieve two-way protection, you can add an N95 or two-way elastomeric underneath the hood. Also, I do notice that the arms of my glasses can sometimes create a tiny outflow of air that goes into my ear in that spot, which can be somewhat a little distracting, because it's just blowing in your ear, you kind of hear it. Though I can usually largely mitigate it by adjusting the position of my glasses around the hood, or maybe adjusting the hood a little bit. I've tried taping it with like surgical or athletic tape as well in that spot. I would also note that there are other PAPRs that are available as well. The other PAPR that I was seriously considering and looking at while I was researching PAPRs was the 3M VersaFlow, which has a similar design, style, and price, and was also NIOSH approved and had really good reviews. So, I mean, I could have easily gone with that one as well. It was almost a coin flip. I like some of the aspects of the Draeger in terms of, it seemed like they really designed the Draeger for moving around and being active and durability in mind, and just some of the great reviews for it really spoke to how much people liked it. So it was, like I said, it was pretty much, it could have been a coin flip. I eventually came down slightly more on the side of Draeger, but I'm sure I would have been just as happy with the 3M VersaFlow. And I know somebody who got a 3M VersaFlow as well, and I haven't heard anything, any bad experiences with the PAPR from her. So I'm sure. I just reread the reviews today. They look great. So there are several options for NIOSH approved PAPRs that are available now, and they're available on Amazon. I didn't order mine through Amazon. I actually went to the Draeger website and looked up their list of approved suppliers and went through a supplier, because I live in an apartment building, and with Amazon, sometimes there are package thefts. We don't have like a concierge at the front desk or anything. So my approach was, and I'll mention this was something that some other people might find valuable. If you get an expensive piece of equipment like this, I sent mine to, and you're in a city, what I did was I had mine sent to a local FedEx store, and they held it for me there. You have to get it and show your ID and whatever, and or tell them who you are. And I found that to be more secure than having it delivered to my building, because I certainly wouldn't want to have it stolen. And but I think Amazon probably would have used they wouldn't have just left it there, I think. And I've learned since then that, like, generally that for higher price items, they would take much more care with it. But at the same time, I'm glad that I took that approach and had it sent to a FedEx location. And I found a supplier that would be willing to do that, like to send it to me care of a FedEx office near me. And I went and picked it up there and brought it home. So that's how I got it. I'll finish today by saying that I hope some of what I have shared today has been helpful, and I hope you all find a high quality respirator that works well for you as part of course, a multifaceted protection plan. Thank you very much for letting me share with you today, and Kara and I would be glad to hear any questions or comments. Thank you.
Can you show and tell for us, Sean? I think
Absolutely.
people would really like to see it. While you get it and get ready for that, I did have a request to put on the secure click. So if you want to grab that, I'll put on the secure click and then just talk around it. Of course, my hair is going to be in the way. I should have put my hair back today, but so the secure click's really easy to put on. You just grab it. Oops, I say really easy, and then I don't click it right. And I don't know if you guys saw the other day the video that my 8-year-old did with one on. I don't. Can you hear me? Yeah. See,
Yeah.
they're actually pretty easy to talk in. They're not nearly as prohibitive in terms of your voice as you might expect. And then again, that seal check, which I guess Sean's actually using the correct terminology. It's a seal check, not a fit check. You know, you just push the button and you can feel it suck on your face, or you can push the button and then, of course, this one has a valve. You'd have to cover the valve to not completely breathe out, but make sure there's no air coming from anywhere else but your valve. But anyway, it's really secure. Like you can actually run around, swing, get on the swings, jump on the little trampolines. It stays on your face. These are the waterproof cartridges. Like I said, the other one, these are even lighter. And these are just fine for COVID. You would only need these, A, if it's raining, or B, if you were like in Palestine when the train wreck happened and you wanted some chemical protection, which we're sort of like, you know, we like to have options for water, and we like to have options in case we're looking around and there's some chemical cloud kind of coming to us. But these are lighter, and this is what like the kid wears when she just runs around and does things, and they're also cheaper. So, and it's really easy to take them on and off. You know, you just push the little button, and it clicks back in. So you can change them when she wants to go and wade in the creek at the park. We can flip them into these. And then when she wants to go and swing, we can put these back on. So then this is the secure click. And to clean them, I have like the benzoyl chloride wipes, you know. So that's what I use when I actually clean, is just to wipe them down. You don't want to use an alcohol wipe, because with the alcohol wipe, it can, I guess, degrade the material. But the BK wipes are just fine, and that's actually what Clean Space told me to use when to clean the Clean Space mask as well. There's one more thing I forgot to tell you guys when Sean brought up the auras. I keep pre-packaged auras in my purse in case I need to offer them to somebody. Because what I found is if I have loose fitting masks in my purse and I offer them to somebody, they're like, are you kidding me? But if I have sealed masks in my purse, so if I need to go into, say, a doctor's office and ask a doctor to wear one, or if I have, you know, someone coming to my house to do a repair, I need to ask them to wear one, having the pre-packaged ones, the individually sealed ones, makes the difference in somebody looking at me and being willing to put it on versus somebody who will refuse to wear the mask. So.
Oh, thanks so much for mentioning the care. I want to mention a story in that regard that happened to me recently that in which those came in really, really handy. I had actually the first people to come to my house in the last 3 years came in about 3 weeks ago, and they were some repair people I needed to work on some heating and cooling equipment. And as with many stuff, I'm sure many of you can relate to the fact that you know I've waited very long to get things fixed, as long as possible. I've let things go, and now it's getting to the point where after 3 years, I really have to get some things repaired. So a few weeks ago, I did let people in, but I took and I put box fans in several windows. I had 2 HEPA filters running, opened the doors and windows, everything. And I was also thankful to find some repair people who would wear a mask. And I did exactly what Kara said. I took those Aura masks outside, and they had where they were before they came in. And you know, when you hand someone a plastic sealed container, or bag, it looks like something that's made just for them. You know, it's single use, and it looks like it's going to be clean and everything and sterile. And so I totally feel the same way as Kara about that. The Aura is such a great feature in that regard, has such great use in that regard. So what I did with the repair people was I actually I handed one to them, and then I took one and I took it out of the bag myself and basically demonstrated how to open it. And you know that the gray part for the nose bridge was on top, and then I pulled the straps back and said that goes around your head. And then I handed him he was going to grab the one that I had been working with, and I said, "Oh no, here's a fresh one for you, sir."
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed to appreciate that, and they wore it, and so I felt great about that. It's a really well-fitting mask, and I would say easy to fit mask. It seems like it's, in my experience,
It rates the highest. It rates the highest for just random fits. If you find the mask that will fit the most people's random face shapes, it's the Aura.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Kara. I didn't know that. And in my experience, it seems to cup over the chin and the nose really well. So that's great. That makes me feel even better about having these repair in the future as well. So I just want to share that. I totally agree. That's a great idea.
Ready to see yours.
Yes. So let me just show some of the parts here. These are the parts that I mentioned earlier. Here's the flexible hose and the comfort pad attached to the belt. And this part is pretty key here to look at. This is where you actually, here's this button where the hose clicks in, and here's the power button, and here's the fan up and down button. It has 3 speeds, and here's the battery indicator. So I'm going to turn it on, and I'll also mention that this is really easy to like I said, it's modular and it's really easy to work with. Everything basically unclicks with one click. If you want to take off the belt, all you got to do is unclick right there, comes right off. And then you can, I'll just take apart the whole machine right now. So here's the battery. You can see that clicks out like that. This is the high capacity battery. And this is, I'll take out the hose here. Okay, so that's out. So you're left with the just the motor here. Well, let me take out the filter. Why not? I'll show you how to do that. So here's the filter housing. There's another button here. So you unclick it, and it comes right out. And so this is the bare bones of it. This is just the motor. You can see how small it is, and you can see where the air goes in right there. And here's the filter that is inside the filter housing. You can see the gasket around the air that seals the filter into place once you press it into the motor. So let me do that. I'll put it back together. I love that you can just take it. I feel comfortable taking it apart completely and putting it back together. And I'm not, a technical guy in many areas. I couldn't take apart a car and put it back together, but I can take this apart and put it back together. And like I said, as with any respirator, I learned a lot from reading the instructions about how to do it and the best approach to doing it. With this sort of equipment, you want to make sure it's done exactly right, because it's important to get the highest level of protection here. So let's see if I can do this right in front of how many people are there. Let's see here. Okay, that clicked into place. So you can see that it just clicks right in. And now I'm going to put the battery back in. So you can see where the spot where the battery connectors meet there. So just put that in. All right. Doing this faster than I usually do. Hopefully everything's in okay. Let's see. Okay, that's good. Let me get the belt back on here. I will say it is pretty comfortable with the belt and the comfort pad. I can walk around for this in hours. I can walk around this for hours around DC. Pretty comfortable. You can hear that, if you heard that snap, the belt snap into place there. Now I'm going to put the hose in. It's good to turn it rather than just pop it on a little bit. Okay, so now I've got it all back together again. Hopefully I did it right. Let's see. So now I'm just going to put it around my waist, and it locks. It has a locking belt clip there. And it's been very secure. I've never had that come undone or anything randomly. So here's the hood. Let me show you this. This is the premium hood. You can see a little bit of tape there. That's where I taped the UV filter on. And I upgraded the premium hood because I thought it might help with the little bit of air coming out around my ear, and I think it did a little bit. It seemed like a little bit more robust of headgear in that regard. It still does come, but occasionally, but I try to adjust it. It seems to go okay. I did upgrade also. This is the flexible hood. So the other hood, I think it really is kind of like accordion style where it just snaps back into place. And the other one didn't do that as much. And I like the, the size of the hood is the large XL. And they have measurements for the hood that you can, measurements you can use which hood will fit best, I believe. But I like this, this hose rather than the original one. I got the standard one because the flexible one, like accordion style, snaps back into place and it minimizes how bulky it is in the back. So that's something to keep in mind is when you're wearing this around, especially if you're wearing this around in the city. I mean, it is a bulky version of the back in your behind you. It's not the most fashionable thing. It's not the most fashionable thing to wear. And just the fact that you can create a smaller silhouette there and it isn't this like huge hose dangling around. It's kind of more compact than flexible hose. And in that regard, you go ahead. Were you say something, Kara?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So when I was looking at what I was gonna wear in clinic, the Draeger versus like the clean space that I got, the silhouette of the clean space was one of the reasons that we chose it. Like in retrospect, I'm not sure the silhouette is worth how much more comfortable though I think that one is going to be because I mean the clean space is comfortable, it's fine, but it's still just like you're wearing a mask. Whereas the full face, I mean the hooded PAPR that you're going to show us, it's not there's no pressure or no confinement there. So being able to see your whole face and then having something lighter on your head, I mean, those are just kind of the trade-offs. I definitely think that the clean space looks more like a regular mask. Like it just, people probably aren't going to do as much of a double take because they're sort of used to people, walking around in masks now. But in terms of comfort, I'm not sure that the sleekness versus the comfort, I mean, that's not too, it's not like you have a full hazmat on. And so I just wanted to put that out there that weighing that I think is probably the sort of the main difference in why you might, choose one or the other. The big difference is how they look and then if one's more comfortable than the other.
Okay, so yeah, again, this is the hood and I'm going to screw in the hose here. So this is what it looks like underneath. There are two loops here under the hood, which I think I learned from reading the instructions. I think I worked for about a year without realizing there were little fabric loops here, so you can use to doff it, to take it off, which is handy. And so the hose fits in right here. Again, as with pretty much everything with this PAPR, it just clicks in. So I just put it in like this and then kind of turn it a little bit to click it in. And I try to kind of like do it so that twist it around a little bit so that it's kind of flush with where the hose is, so it won't like twist around too much. And then I put it on like this, and that's how it looks. And then I basically spin around this part right here, and I'll show you what I do. Basically, I just turn this on like that. You see that? So I got it on high right now, and you see the battery's all powered up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Okay. I can turn it down a little bit. I don't have to put it on full power. And I think I did ask that of the safety technician at Draeger about the APF. Like, does the fan speed change it at all? Like, if you put it on high speed, is it a better APF? And he said he didn't think so. I mean, he said that's irrelevant. If you're going to get that APF, even at the low fan speed. And so I usually like it on about 2. And so you can see that there. And then I just spin it around, and that's it. I'm good to go. Like I said, I might adjust. You can see kind of where my glasses meet the elastic. I try to push those above that as much as I can, which kind of mitigates that blowing because that can reduce your hearing a little bit. But I've pretty much pushed them above that elastic area now, and that's a lot better. And in terms of hearing, how well can you hear your friend with this motor on? I can hear them pretty well. I can hear them. I walk with several friends for hours around the city. I can hear them talking. I went to work recently and I met with several people, computer staff to get I upgraded to get my laptop exchange. Had to do some stuff on my laptop with the computer specialist. I mean, she could hear me. I could hear her. It's basically it shaves off a little bit, like you might imagine of hearing, but you can hear everybody. And like I said, like the fact that you can see me completely is a big benefit. My friends said, wow, he appreciated that. And you mentioned like the noticing it. And I realized kind of a funny story. I realized the other day, like sometimes I'm walking around in it and I forget I'm wearing it because you don't think about it. And then you see somebody just standing there looking at it and you're just like, Oh yeah, I'm wearing this. I forgot. But it is pretty. But you can kind of forget, just like anything else, I guess, over time when you get used to it.
Well, that speaks to the comfort level, I think, Sean.
Yeah,
I'm not, for being able to forget you have it on means that it's actually really, really comfortable. I'm not sure I've ever forgot I'm wearing the clean space yet.
yeah, and I will mention sometimes the headgear. If I'm wearing it for like a really long time walking around, the headgear can like kind of feel like a little discomfort around my head area where the headgear is. But I think I haven't spent a long time like trying to perfect that adjustment. I think I can work on that. But
How is it compared to like a harness for your your P100?
I would say it's similar because I've gotten fatigued
Similar.
with the harness. So, yeah, and
Okay.
one thing I will say it's superior about is the with the elastomeric, the bridge of the nose sometimes over time. I've walked. So my approach to getting vaccines has been basically to walk across town to a given pharmacy. So sometimes I'm walking for 2 hours, each way and that sort of thing outside. And I've taken long walks as well just for pleasure in it with the elastomeric. And after a while, the bridge of your nose can start to hurt. And that, like I said in my talk, that especially happened with the first big bulky filter that I had, the VOC filter, that was also P100. That I had to stop wearing because it just simply hurt so bad on my neck. After a while, I walked around for a couple of hours in it. So then I switched to like I said, I switched to the lighter 2097 filters, and that basically almost completely resolved the problem. I might have some slight discomfort after a really long time walking around, but doable. And that's it. And I actually I was watching some videos last night preparing for this. And I heard some great tips that I hadn't thought about. But one guy made the point that, and something that I kind of learned over time is to, when you're going to be out for a long time, it can backfire to over tighten, because you do over tighten. And this, I think this person mentioned that was part of the that some people have found this or doing some research. I didn't get the details on that, but basically that it makes sense. If you do over tighten, if you tighten it too hard, then after a while it's going to cause a lot of discomfort in your face, and you might try to adjust it here and there. You might try to face to try to get around it, to try to make it a little more comfortable. And it might, over time, if you do adjust it a little bit here and there, you're trying to, that's a little relief in that spot. That really, had a lot of discomfort. Then it could, break that seal eventually. And so the way I like to think that it is, you definitely do want to find that happy medium of creating a seal but not over tightening. So that was a great point in the video. At the same time, if I know I am going into a high risk situation, I might give it a little extra oomph in the seal. If that makes sense, I might pull it a little, tighten it to the seal, and then maybe give it a little extra, just for good measure. This is my, I don't know, it's not scientific of an approach, but
Which is really why it's super cool that with the PAPR, you don't have to really worry about the seal as much, right? Like this, that's another freedom, right? When you talk about something we're trying to automate and not have to think about all the time. And one of the members in our PAPR group, I think you've seen the photo, he has his 4-year-old in the small 3M hood with the VersaFlow, and the kids being able to sort of have something that on. Now, I don't know in terms of in the secure click, like I said, with the lighter filters on them, with these filters, my 8-year-old can run, swing, jump. She can pretty much do whatever. It's not moving around on her head, and it's light enough for her to do that. I would guess she's probably going to have a little bit less mobility in, if she has a backpack on with the PAPR motor. In terms, I don't know how heavy do you think that is? How many pounds do you think your Draeger motor is?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. It's to the point where it kind of sits on my hip bones in the back, so it's not like I said, it's pretty comfortable, and there is a comfort pad attached to it. It's kind of like a gel pad, so it's pretty comfortable. I don't know how much it weighs, but like I said, that aspect that's never the issue. That's the issue that would come up where if for like a few hours out, probably the headgear eventually would be the thing that causes maybe a little bit of discomfort first around my head. This is really, basically if you can wear a backpack, like a school backpack, it's kind of like you can wear that. It's kind of like
you can wear that. Okay, cool.
Think about that as like maybe a backpack with like a couple books in it. Kind of that sort. That's very technical, language.
No, I was just thinking about how many textbooks it would be. So that's a great idea. Well, thank you so much for putting that on and walking us through and taking it apart and talking about all these details. I know I've been asking you questions that I wanted to know, looking at the different kinds of PAPRs. So
I wanted to mention something else too. I wanted to, we meant, I think I discussed earlier how you mentioned about how much more comfortable this can be versus elastomerics. I actually wore an elastomeric with this for the first year. I think or first few months of having this, I wore the 3M elastomeric underneath this, and that's one reason, like I said, I got it because it would fit. And in talking with you about it, I think a few months ago, I think you had said something to the effect of like, you'll probably be okay with, the PAPR, that, it's so protected. And then that got me thinking about it. So I thank you for that, in terms of, do I really need to wear, the elastomeric with it as like double protection, and really, and I think that might be when I like called up Draeger and said like, okay, what is the APF? And that's when I got in more. I think you might have helped me like learn about APF too. So thanks a lot.
No worries.
So that all that, that help from you and others and thinking about it has led to this, this situation where I don't have to wear a face sealing mask anymore, which is
right.
Which is, and
yeah, I'll just add to that. I'll add to that the not all, like you said, not all healthcare professionals are even proficient in PAPRs or understand them very well. And we have a really great dentist in New Jersey, Avenel, New Jersey, and they were wearing PAPRs. They were the VersaFlows, but very similar to the one you have on. And they had actually called and got somebody at 3M and told them that the exhale was filtered in a PAPR, which is completely obviously not true. But they didn't know it until again, another one of our COVIDing members, she did some research and went and found out that the exhale wasn't filtered. And so that's the only caveat, that if you wanted to protect someone else, like that dentist now wears just an N95 under the PAPR, which was great. They modified and adjusted when they learned that they were making a mistake. So in terms of personal protection, though, like you found out with the APFs, there's no reason to have something extra under there for you. It would only be if you were trying to do that two-way for some reason.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention one more thing, which is in terms of usability and like wearing it around, we have talked about the silhouette. So let me do the side view here so you can see the silhouette here. That is what it looks like. And, it is something that I think about, in terms of walking around the city, and just, I try to be as, inconspicuous as I can with it. It is hard, of course. So it's easier in the winter than it is in summer is what I'll mention. And this is what I wore in the winter, which I'll show you. I think I was largely able to, well, not, completely, but I think, you can see that it is somewhat wearing a jacket over it. I wore this jacket pretty much during the winter, and anyway, so you can see like this is me walking around this winter, and you can see like it is a protrusion there, but you can see this is pretty much my approach to it, and pretty much the only thing you're really going to see in terms of the gear is the hood.
Right.
And the thing I like about it, and I'll mention this with this gear in general, is like I said, I like wearing this during the winter because it pretty much obscured it for the most part, except for the pulse, of course. But the thing, I also recommend wearing something over it in summer too. I have like a very, very light like micro fleece that I can wear, that I wear most summers anyway, just sun off, that I can wear just because I think it is good if you wear a PAPR like this to have something that covers up the hose, just because it's something dangling there. So I wouldn't want it to get caught in anything. I wouldn't want it to, it feels like a vulnerability there that I want to protect. So I want to, I in that regard, I always wear something over it in the winter or summer, just because I don't want the thing like dangling out everywhere. And so it's to both reduce the silhouette and protect the gear. So and like I said, with rain, this jacket during the winter is extra protection against if it starts to rain. Of course, it's covering the whole gear. And like I said, I generally try to avoid going out in the rain, pretty much for the most part with me, and always carry an umbrella with me if I go out and it looks like rain.
So we've got some questions. They say, can you ride a bike in it? Can you use it while you're driving? Have you played sports in it? What would your take be on some of those?
So I'll mention that, and I recommend go on YouTube and look up Draeger Explorer 8000 or go to their website, because one of the things that sold me on this originally was they have a video where they have one of those guys. What are they called? I forget. It's called like that basically athletic sport where people do, it's like not free jumping. It's like free running or something where people are running through different parts of the city and jumping off buildings.
Like parkour.
Parkour, thank you, that's it. So they had a parkour athlete, and he was wearing this, and they showed him running through an industrial park, jumping off buildings, jumping onto other parts of the building, doing somersaults, somersaulting underneath, old equipment and whatnot, running outside, running on top of the building. And I saw that, and they showed like little close-ups of like the gear like crashing into the ground, and just like, that they basically wanted to emphasize in that ad, and I know it's just an ad, of course, but that showed me that like they really are designing this to be durable and mobile. And that video actually was one thing that sold me, because you can see it's very small in terms of the gear. It's really compact and it's really durable. And so I actually kind of, in terms of, let me answer one. So in terms of that kind of led me to think, well, this is kind of for people who are active and want to remain active. And it's definitely, this is not something that's like for someone who's just, working at a hospital, moving around slowly. It's really designed to be active. And I really like that about it. So in terms of the questions, riding a bike, I could definitely ride a bike in this. I can't remember if I have. I don't think so. I don't think I've been riding a bike since then. But I mean, that's a good question. I don't think, I'm just, moving my legs right now. I don't think that would cause a problem in terms of, mobility. Trying to think of leaning forward. I think, like I said, if you can wear a backpack, anything you can wear a backpack with, you can pretty much do with this. Like I said, for what were the other questions?
Like the different fan speeds. What's the purpose of the different fan speeds? And I can speak to that a little bit because of the microclimate has them too. And when you're sitting and you're just talking, you're not exerting a lot, then you can have a lower fan speed, and you hear a little bit better. People can hear you a little bit better. Whereas if you're doing a lot of exertion, you want a higher flow, and that will also keep you from fogging. I mean, I'm assuming that's sort of the same principle behind the fan speeds on the Draeger. Is that right?
That's a great question. And that's something I haven't looked into that deeply. I've pretty much done okay with any fan speed. And I actually haven't looked into that aspect too much. That is something that I probably should look at more. I did have a little bit of an experience with it the other day, though. I noticed when I walk around sometimes, and I don't know, I was wondering if this is just me and my exercise, my fitness level, or the machine. I realized, it could be a little bit of both. Like when you start to walk and you're talking to a friend, you start huffing and puffing a little bit, just slightly, not like a huge amount. But I'm wondering, it occurred to me, oh wait, could that be the amount of oxygen in the mask when I'm really going hard, like walking up, I take hikes in Rock Creek Park in different parts of the city. I'm walking up hills and I'm sweating a little bit, and I realized, oh wait, I'm totally dependent on how much oxygen is coming through this mask. And then I realized, oh, well, let me turn up the fan. And I think it might have helped a little bit actually. But
it does. They've actually there were people on YouTube, and again, this was with looking at this with the microclimate. And they were using the microclimate in different environments. And definitely with exertion, you wanted the fan on high speed. And it's probably just because, again, as you're breathing more heavily, you're putting more, carbon dioxide into your little hood. You want more air to push that out more quickly. So I think that's probably the same principle. Because that reminds me, I didn't say that microclimate. So my question about the microclimate eventually got answered by the, basically the physics of a PAPR, right? Microclimate's a PAPR, and so that's why, again, you can have these fabric pieces that are, making sure that the concentration of the air around your face is of such that everything's blowing away from your face and not allowing you to breathe in those particulates. So. That's sort of, it's not that the fabric's impenetrable or anything. It's just the physics of the design keep it out.
And I want to share, I've taken walks as long as like 8 miles in this, walking up hills, walking through nature. I actually climbed through part of Rock Creek Park recently where, there was this little trail where it forks off, and there's a little sign that says, to the right, moderate, to the left, strenuous. And I took the one that was strenuous. I thought, hey, why the heck not? I'm actually it's kind of rocky. I'm kind of on all fours a little bit, and I've got this gear on, and I realized, what am I doing? I've got a this piece of gear on. Is this okay walking up this this hillside, this rocky? And but it was okay. We worked great, and I wasn't trying to imitate the guy in the video, but it worked out great, and that's probably the most strenuous I've done. Like I said, I walked up like hills that are steep, but that experience, kind of like climbing up a little bit of a rocky hillside with it on, and then climbing down, there's a lot of exposed roots, rocks, boulders, that sort of thing. And I did that okay with the PAPR. I mean, honestly, the worst piece of equipment I had was my sneakers that I was wearing, not the PAPR.
Right.
they were slippery, you know. And so yeah, so anybody who's looking to remain active and wear this, I think you could do it because I've been doing it. I mean, I don't run. I don't think you could run with it. I'm just like,
Right.
But I think, but you can do brisk hikes with it, and I'm guessing you could probably do with biking. But the problem, I have thought about biking. The problem with biking is, of course, of course, it's recommended to wear a helmet, and I don't know how one would wear a bike helmet and this. That just occurred to me. I don't, because of course the hood kind of, the thing I'm feeling it right now, it's bulbous and it protrudes outwards because of the way the air comes in. And it is really important to keep, and this is just a usage thing in general, it's really important to keep this area clear. Like if I've had, sometimes you put on a coat and it just like, bulks up in that one spot and the thing will go, whoa, it'll just, just like stop there. So it's important to keep this area clear and so the air can come in totally. So in that regard, if you use a bike, if you use a stationary bike, you can do that, but a bike outside, you're not going to be able to wear a helmet probably, properly. So that is something.
And that was another question. When you put your jacket over it, you're not impeding the airflow into the motor. Your motor's not working harder.
No, because let me try it again. So basically, with the jacket, the key thing about the jacket when you put it on, the only place it can really cause a stop is because this area is just hard plastic, going into a pretty hard plastic, or flexible plastic tube. And the tube itself is pretty. I'm trying to press it right now. It's not the kind of tube that. It's not like a garden hose where you can press it in. It's like it's pretty robust. It's got that accordion shape that makes it kind of structurally sound. And the only place, like I said, where it's really there could be a problem is in this area around the hood. So I just make sure.
So the air intake's on the bottom of your motor, so it's pointing down. Is that?
So it's on the top right here. Can you see that? So the air intake is on the top of the motor. You mean the air intake itself? Yeah, the air intake in terms of where it comes in the filter.
Yeah,
that's a good question. I assume it's on the bottom. It's somewhere around the edges. There are gaps. You can see here there are gaps.
There you go. So that's the answer: is that when you put a jacket over it, you're getting enough bulk outward that you're not impeding the unit's ability to suck the air in because it's on the sides. Yeah.
Yeah, it can still get. That's a great question. I hadn't thought about it like that. But basically, I think it can still get the air because, of course, at the bottom of my jacket's open, so it can still get the air from around the back of it. The back of it is hard plastic here, so the jacket that's what the jacket, and it's not going to stop any airflow right there. So thanks for asking that. Yeah, and like I said, this I try to keep this like I don't want to tighten it too tight up top, because it probably won't cause any issue anyway, but you definitely want to keep this area around the back pretty. But like I said, it's pretty easy to keep the jacket on pretty tightly.
Yeah, that's good. And someone's asking about eating and drinking in the PAPR, and I will tell you guys from experience, you can't really eat in it. But what we do for my daughter who has those 8-hour-long infusions is you can actually get a piece, sort of like this nebulizer hose that comes onto your nebulizer. You can get a piece of IV tubing that's really long. And that's that beauty of that outflow protecting you, is that you can slip, just like your glasses, might pass through. You can slip a piece of IV hose under the side of your PAPR, and then you can actually put the other end in a beverage. And you can drink while you have a PAPR on. Now, I mean, eating, obviously, that would be like, you don't want to just gap it off and eat. That's not going to protect you. But if you have some small piece of tubing that's coming through, again, it's no different than like your glasses or whatever, that outflow of air is going to blow past and protect you, as long as you're not making like a huge separation from your face with the PAPR. So like go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we've done it with the microclimates. It's really easy. You just snake it up and stick it in the corner of your mouth, and then you can zip on beverages.
That's a really cool hack, Karen. Thanks so much. That hadn't occurred to me as a possibility, but that makes a lot of sense what you said there scientifically. So I wanted to mention another hack. Like I mentioned this, so there is a UV film over my face. So like I said, I'm protected against UV light. So there's another hack I did recently that I really like because one of the areas the silhouette can break down is the bulk in the front, surprisingly, because the way the straps are, they would just kind of hang here. So when I put the a fleece over it, there'd be this little bulbous like protrusion in the front where my stomach is, where the things hang on, where the straps hang on. So I realized, like they're just straps. I can certainly tack those down. So what I did was I just went on Amazon and got some. Can you see that there? Like some Velcro, and it has like sticky stuff on the back. So I put some Velcro on this side, cut it out, and put it. It's perfectly right here. And then I put you can kind of see it there. I measured it and put the other piece of Velcro right here on this belt. And then it perfectly matches together. And now I've got this belt secured. And then when you walk, it doesn't create that kind of bulge of these straps around everywhere. I think they should add that to the equipment, honestly. They do have some some of these clips here, but the clips don't go all the way back. And because the straps are so long, I felt it was necessary to really secure them back here somewhere. And so you can hear it. I just put some Velcro there, and now they're boom. And now
that's a great idea.
Thanks. And so now I've got this like silhouette.
Okay, I will try, Sean, if you would maybe try, you can maybe pop me over the links for your UV film, or maybe the mask you've talked about and stuff. People are really just asking for a lot of, is there a link for this? Is there a link for that? I saw Christina say she was going to try to put some document together or something. So maybe if we can get those links together, then Christina's notes and her document can go with it. But yeah, I think, someone else is asking for the Decent Seal goggle links that you were talking about. So maybe we can get those over to people so that they can, Christina's saying, how about the PowerPoint? Can she have the PowerPoint to include in the, in her document that she'll put together?
Absolutely. Yeah, I will share. So yeah, how do we get in touch? Yeah, please. Christina. Please
you can send it to me because I'm connected. Yeah, Christina and I'm so much together that I'm connected with her. So just, you have my email, right? So just,
I don't.
If you don't, I'll message it. Yeah, and you can just I'll message you my email, and you can.
Yeah, thanks so much. One thing I would add is I haven't had a chance to look at any of the questions yet. Is there a way we can save all the questions so I can see them too, just in case there's anything that?
Well, that's what Christina's saying. She's telling me there's a way to turn on something. It says who can see your messages recording on. Everyone in the meeting can see and save messages sent to everyone and share them with other apps. So everyone should be able to see and save the messages and share them. Kara has to change chat settings. Okay, Christina, I am going to make you the host so you can change the chat settings because I obviously have no idea what I'm doing. Maybe if I can even figure out how to do that. Maybe I can. I've lost the participants. Here we go. There we go. Make host. Yes. All right, Christina, have at it. And while we're,
I will try. I'm not a Zoom expert either, but I've been Googling like when we couldn't copy things.
There we go. Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'm fine to hang out for a little while longer. If anyone else has some settings, I'll also take off the, you can unmute yourself. I don't know, Sean, if you have time or not, but we've gone about an hour and a half, 2.5 hours. So a lot of great information. Sean, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thank you all for being here too.